Sessions with Mary Jane. I am one of your hosts, Jordan Freed.
I am your other host, Reena Ezra.
And I am Brendan O'Brien, Ezra Freed, at your services.
And we are LNH Studios right now. And we are here with a very, very special guest today. It is about to get very political in here. We're about to get very New Jersey in here. So welcome to the show, lawyer, politician, candidate for political office, Hector Oseguera.
Thank you. A pleasure to be on, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
it's an honor. Let's get green.
Yeah.
So, for those who aren't familiar with Hector's background, he was running against the incumbent Alberto Sears. Yeah. Albio Sears. Yeah. Who's been around forever, but now he is out, right? He is retiring this year.
I'll take credit for that.
How was that, running up against somebody who's been in the system for so long?
Right, and thanks for asking that, because it was really the experience of a lifetime. So I have a lot of history with Albio, actually, because he was the mayor of West New York, New Jersey, which is my hometown. That's where I grew up. His wife was very involved in the Board of Education in New Jersey. If you're going to be an aspiring politician in New Jersey, the Board of Education is like your farm system. So if you're going to be a powerful politician, they come up through the educational system. And then they give all these high paid jobs to their wives. So his wife was like the guidance counselor of all the schools when I was a kid. And so I knew him from when I was like a little kid, like 6, 7, because he was the mayor of my town. And there were always stories about how things went down. The police department of West New York had to be disbanded while he was mayor because they were caught running numbers for the Cuban mafia. The Cubans are very heavy in that part of New Jersey. And so, it was a cool experience. It was definitely like going Rage Against the Machine, because the entire political establishment had turned against me. And I, to this day, am persona non grata with a lot of those people.
Wow. Yeah, wow. So that kind of brings us to your challenge, which is a big part of Sessions with Mary Jane, is we have our guests do a challenge in the background just to keep the conversation flowing if it gets a little dull and we're a little sleepy on our end at any point. But we just want you to name some Jersey politicians along the way. You could give your thoughts on them if you want, or whatever you may feel, but you could get 0. We've had people get 0, and I think the record right now for 2022 is like 32 or something like that.
Yeah, for 2021 it was 104.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, but they had a different category. They had to name strains of weed, so it was very fitting that was the top.
They're deserving of the title.
Yes.
I could get high up there, but not to 104.
Right.
I mean, but you would be the new champion of 2022. Wherever you land. So, and you can interrupt at any time.
So New Jersey politicians. We're gonna start with Don Norcross, Cory Booker. I will go with Frank Hague, Steve Fulop, Brian Stack, Albio Sears, Bob Menendez, Jr.
You're right.
I could go forever. Gabriel Rodriguez, Wayne Zitt. I'm just going local now, but let's go statewide. We could go to Tom Malinowski, Josh Gottheimer, Mikey Sherrill, Connie Watson Coleman.
Wow. Okay, so just starting at our guests, our fans are a bunch of stoners, and they're like, "All right, this guy knows his stuff." We don't know any Jersey politicians, but this guy definitely is versed. We have vetted him at the door.
Yeah.
When did you first become interested in politics, and what got you interested in it?
So, okay, and that's a real interesting question because, I grew up in, this urban environment where, it's a lot of poor people, a lot of immigrants, and I guess I was always sort of just, curious as, why are my neighborhoods like this and other neighborhoods are very much not like this? Because I would travel, I would go around, and, you know, I guess I saw the suburbs eventually, and I was like, you know, my neighborhood looks nothing like this. And I guess I started getting curious as to, like, why certain neighborhoods are some ways and certain neighborhoods are other ways. And that led me towards the road to economics, which I studied in college, and then ultimately to politics. And so that's kind of what got me interested in leftist politics, is like going up to Boston, where I went to college, and like just sort of like learning that there were other dynamics, that there were other ways of looking at the world, that there are other political systems out there. And I just sort of like I always had this question of like, who really is in control of things? And I guess that's what took me to politics.
Wow. So you studied at Boston University, right? Yeah.
Indeed.
So that was, when did you go to school? Was that like around the financial
during
crisis?
the same time as a certain congresswoman.
Oh, also, yeah. I was also curious about that. For those who haven't connected the dots, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you worked on her campaign, and you also worked on Bernie's campaign, correct?
Indeed, indeed.
Back in the day.
How are those experiences?
It was cool, right? So, like, AOC, I didn't know her when I went to college, but when she started running, there were enough mutual acquaintances that I knew that she was a BU grad. I'm a year older than her, and so she was a year under me. And it was cool because it gave... I have this tendency of, like, running into campaigns that I have a lot of hope in, and I want them to win, but I don't necessarily believe that they can win, right? Because, like, especially if you're a leftist, it's like you put your heart and soul into a lot of campaigns, and a lot of them just don't win, you know? And that's the sad truth of it. And so I was volunteering on her campaign, and, like, when she won, it was just, like, the most amazing feeling in the world. It's like, wow, like, those phone calls really did mean something, you know? Like, you write letters, you knock on doors, and you send texts, and you're like, wow, is anyone on the other end of this, like, even caring? And when she won, it was, I have the email saved to this very day of, like, the New York Times called it and we won. And it's like, wow. Like,
you had to print that out, frame it.
Yeah, I really want to.
Yeah,
that's
wow.
fantastic. And what about Bernie?
Bernie was amazing too. It was like this whole big community. Like, I've never seen the left more united than like when Bernie ran in 2015, 2016. People just like were coming out of the woodworks. I've met so many people at random events, at random canvases that we still talk to this very day. And I just think it was a great uniting experience for the left. So many different people, like of the broad spectrum of the left, were just like organizing together, and it felt really good.
Yeah, I'd say right now, like, they're not too deep into like leftist politics. I'm definitely more into, well, like, I'm on Twitter in that way.
We have a Bernie Sanders bobblehead.
We do have a Bernie Sanders.
We both dressed up as Bernie, both of us as Bernie Sanders for Halloween. Like,
hardcore.
Yeah.
But in general, what do you think at this point, like, looking at like the landscape of America with like COVID and everything that's going on right now, what do you think is like the direction that the country needs to go so that everybody comes into it? Like, we do bring things back together and get to a point of unity. Like, do you think that is possible? Do you think there are strategies not being used enough? Like, where do you see that going?
Yeah, and I do a lot of thinking in like that sort of area of like, where do we go from here? Because I do think Bernie was like the lightning bolt, but like we got to keep that spark going. It's like it wasn't just like one person, and I feel like on the left we're like waiting for like this messianic figure to emerge and to like bring peace and unity to the world. And you know, the strategy that I've kind of like that's kept me sane since my campaign is turning more to local politics. Like, I think that local politics is really where it's at. I feel like the right wing sort of like has an edge up above us in that regard, that they've sent people into like the Board of Educations and the zoning boards and the planning boards and like taking control of these really minute local issues that actually have a ton of actual real world power in your daily life. So I think that where the left should go from here is like, we need to get on our local politics game and start taking over city councils and start taking over like boards of education and stuff like that. I think that because honestly, like as a leftist, my solutions are always going to be like grassroots building up towards the top. Like I think if we're always going for Congress, if we're always going for the presidency, like we're going to continue to be disappointed. We need to build solutions from the bottom up, and we'll be like building blocks that eventually lead to bigger and bigger solutions. Like, so that's my hopeful dream, and hopefully, honestly, like every day I hope Joe Biden cancels student loan debt, and like that would definitely be great for the left, but until that happens, I'm focusing on the local stuff.
Yeah, you were talking before about how there's like this connection between politics and how like the education board is kind of like the farm system. What is the reason why there's such a like natural connection or often connection between politics and institutions like the Board of Eds?
So like on a local level, the Board of Education sort of has a lot of say over what gets done in your schools. They have budgets that are often in the millions of dollars. And so when you're talking about a political establishment, especially like in New Jersey, they want to know if they can trust you. Mm-hmm. So they'll like put you into these little things. And like, if you go the right way, you'll eventually bubble up through that system. And maybe one day you'll get on the city council. Maybe one day they'll make you mayor. And then maybe one day you'll get to sit in Congress for 14 years and not do anything.
Yeah. Is it frustrating at all? Like being like within this, like the system and trying to like navigate, like, how much do you go along with the way the system is? How much do you try to break the system? Like, is that something that you've kind of had to encounter in your time?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, it is really frustrating because the way that a lot of people come to politics is that they see an issue and they'll sort of be like, how can I fix this issue, right? And that's how it happens in New Jersey. But then you come up to your local boss and you'll basically be like, I have this problem and I'd like to solve it. Could I do something about this? But like, no. That's not how it works around here. Like, it's actually that way because we want it to be that way and you're not going to stop us. So honestly, from someone like me, you're always going to be on the outside of the system. They're never going to invite you in. You sort of have somebody who's like a young man and wanted to get involved sort of came to me and he wanted to know how to get involved, right? And he thought about it more like a job interview. And he thought, if I'm a really good candidate, they'll evaluate me as a person and maybe if I'm good enough, they'll pick me, right? And I had to tell him, that's really not how it works. Like, this isn't a job interview. This is more like gang warfare. Like, you have to pose a threat to these people. You have to exercise power. And then they have to be afraid of you exercising that power. So, honestly, for someone like me, coming from totally outside the system, they're never going to accept me. They're never going to want me. They're never going to like what I have to do or say. And so we have to take it, right? Power doesn't concede power. You have to take it from them. And that's the only way that we're going to get anything done. If you try to play nice with the establishment, they're more likely to co-opt you and you lose the support that you've built with people who thought that you were a legitimate person, and they'll basically have made you weak, and then they have nothing to gain from you anymore either, so they'll just cast you aside.
Yeah. So what have you been up to for the midterm elections to make sure that people do get out in their local elections and know what the issues are and what they really need to be focused on, like the school budget, like the school board, like little things that influence the future generations?
Indeed. So we just had local elections in Jersey City, municipal elections, and I was really involved with all the candidates running in all the wards of Jersey City. And so that helps us stay relevant on a regular basis. People know that you're not just here for election time. In Jersey is a really weird state where we have an election literally every single year. So that presents someone like me opportunities every single year to get out there, to be in front of the community. The big issue I've been working on has been ICE, Immigration Custom Enforcement. For your viewers who may not know, I was actually arrested protesting outside of the county executive's home on the issue of ICE. The case is still ongoing, even though they've gotten out of the ICE contract. So on a policy level, we did get a win on that one, but they're trying to extract their pound of flesh by dragging out this court process. Other than that, I've been focused a lot on the line. The line is this ballot issue of how the establishment draws the ballot in New Jersey to make it so that the establishment always wins. And really just touching base with a lot of different people statewide. I'm good friends with the folks over at the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey, the Hudson County Progressives, the Working Families Alliance, and a lot of other labor organizers, leftists who feed me information about what the machine is up to, and just like put me in a good space to compete against any machine candidates that come up, whether it be, the son of a senator or any other mayor who may want to exercise power in a way that I don't find totally legitimate. We're pushing back in every way, shape, or form. Recently, we had a ward thing in Jersey City where the ward maps were being changed in a way that was basically gerrymandering on a local level. Wow. So I'm just touching base with people on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on the things that are happening in their communities, and just trying to make sure that they know that we're in touch with what's going on with them.
Yeah, Jersey City also, they're a great example of the housing, crisis that we have in America right now. Our real estate, our owner, I'm hot. Landlord. Our landlord is from Weehawken, Union City, so he's a good guy. But there's a lot of people who are going into Jersey City, right, and all of these places right now, putting up luxury apartments in these places that people can barely afford apartments, and the rents just keep going up and up and up. New York City's rents are so high, even though COVID kind of kicked people out. I guess everybody just bumped up the rents because of inflation also. How do you see relief coming? Is there no relief? Is the relief just move out further and become localized in your areas and build communities as far away from expensive real estate as possible?
Right. So the housing issue is one that I've been really focused on. In Union City, which is literally next door to Union City, I was able to get on the planning board where I fight for affordable housing on a very regular basis. Union City, thankfully, is a community that has remained a working class community. This is one of those places you're not getting priced out. A lot of the kids that I went to high school with have been able to buy homes in Union City, were born and raised in Union City. And so there are places where you can find enclaves of working class people that have been able to carve out a place for themselves. Unfortunately, Jersey City is looking really rough right now. The Kushners have a firm grip. LaFrac and all these big real estate developers coming into Jersey City and really trying to import the rents of New York City into Jersey. And we have people organizing really hard on that issue as well. It's hardcore, but we need legislators to pass things. We had the moratorium, the eviction moratorium, stuff like that, I think is very helpful, but we got a long way to go. I was big on the tax abatements when I was running, because tax abatements are this way of really giving extra profits to these real estate developers and moving up the prices of real estate and really pricing people out. So I'm watching that very closely, and it's one of those things I am worried about. I don't have a good solution yet, but we need to put people in elected office that are going to fight for working class renters.
Yeah. Before we started recording, we were talking about Jersey pride and just the super Jersey pride that comes from just being born and raised here. So what is it about Union City or even New Jersey that makes you want to stay here and care about fighting for it and doing what's best for it?
I just find this place to be so welcoming. This is my home, and I've been accused in life of having a bubble, and my bubble is Hudson County. I could go anywhere in the world, but I always come back here to Hudson County. It's the food, it's the people. It's just it's being in a big city, but also in a small town at the same time. Of people know each other, but there's thousands of people, and it's just such a beautiful mosaic of people, food, culture, everything in the world happens here, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I can't help but love it here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's sometimes kind of going to Jordan's point before of there being definitely a conflict and a lot of people fighting. I think there definitely is a void of people finding community, or at least it's a lot harder for people to find community. So it's, I guess when you do have it, you're very appreciative of it, and you kind of just want to support that as much as you can.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You're in Hudson County, so that means you're staring at New York a lot. How do you
all the
feel
time.
about Eric Adams taking over the city at this point?
Womp womp.
The general
I
consensus.
saw it coming. I saw it coming
Yeah.
a mile away, honestly. I feel like we're having a return to like the 90s style politics of like barely Republican Democrats, you know, like basically the president is a Republican, he's a Democrat, you know.
Yeah.
So I see it coming, and that's not a good thing because those policies were horrific, and like austerity, tough on crime, all that stuff was horrific. So I just think that we have to like gear up and like know what's coming down the line, because in a lot of ways I feel like those sorts of politics led to Donald Trump, right? So a reemergence of those politics are only going to lead to something even worse down the line. So I think that we have a huge fight in front of us. We have to mobilize against like that sort of like just barely basically Republicans except for social issues.
Yeah, for sure. It was tough, like, growing up in New York. Like, my dad was a teacher, so, like, his entire career, he was like, unions, they're against unions. Like, it's all Democrats, like, in office, but, like, unions were getting killed in New York, and, like, there wasn't great healthcare in New York either. Like, always Democrats in office. How do you feel about New Jersey in general? Do you feel like the local guys in Jersey hook us up here? Do you think on the scale of like what can get done in America, we're doing okay in Jersey? Or what do you think needs to be changed here to get it to the point where it is like the leftist place where people can have their choice to get an abortion if they want to, the place where they can get a job that pays them more than $7.25 at least? Yeah.
Right. So I think that that's one of the benefits of being such a blue state, right? Is that on certain policies, we're going to be protected no matter what. Like on a woman's right to choose abortion, the right to abortion is not going anywhere in New Jersey. The minimum wage is going up in New Jersey. We're not afraid of taxing people who earn over $1 million in a state like New Jersey, right? Those are good things. Unfortunately, you still get a lot of those Democrats who basically want to play both sides, and we have a lot of that in Hudson County. There are a lot of Democrats in Hudson County who get conservative Republicans to vote for them at the general election. That happens a lot because Steve Sweeney, I think, was a good example of that. Until he got knocked out by that weirdo trucker guy. I'm not sure if we'll get into how far we can get into that story, but basically, this very conservative Democrat. Basically, Steve Sweeney was a super conservative Democrat. Like he was against women's issues. He was against like economics on a working class level, and he got beat out by this like weirdo trucker guy who spent basically less than $1,000 on his campaign. And so I think that should be an example of like, if you stray too far to that corporate Democrat, you're going to lose because you can't have it both ways. The Republicans will say, I might as well just vote for the actual Republican, and you've eroded your support with the Democratic base. So I kind of feel like getting younger people more involved and actually getting younger, more leftist people into office will give people at the higher level the courage to say, well, you know, I see the energy coming from these people, so we can go a little more left on the policy. So that's sort of like my main goal, is getting more leftists at a more local level elected, so that people at the state level, at the federal level can say, okay, well, I see it bubbling up from the local level, so I can be a little more bold on the policy level, because I ultimately believe that most politicians are cowards and like they're afraid of even stepping 1 foot anywhere near the line. So if you move, basically what you got to do is move the line, is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Do you think the idea of a third party emerging as like a serious contender is like an actual possibility? And if so, is that a good thing to have a third party emerge?
Okay, so like in my like college level politics, right? Like America should really have 4 parties. In my ultimate belief is like we should have a true leftist party, which would encompass your like Bernies, your AOCs. You know, you can throw a couple more people, Pramila Jayapal, into there. Then you would have your regular Democratic Party. Who would that be? Your Barack Obamas, your Hillary Clintons. Then you could have a regular Republican Party, your Lindsey Grahams and your Mitch McConnells. And then you can have a far right party, your Trumps and your Crenshaws. And so I believe that if we had a real like democracy, we'd probably have 4, if not more, parties, right? unfortunately, in a state like New Jersey, where you have like closed primaries, so you have to be registered to a party to vote in the primaries. Unfortunately, a third party would not be suitable for New Jersey. There are other states like California or Washington where you have jungle primaries where you could be of any party and the top 2 vote getters go to the general. In a system like that, you absolutely could have a third party, somebody from a completely separate party, come in and get the votes. But unfortunately, in a state like New Jersey, the best way to go about it would be to run a more leftist candidate, or what would be a third-party candidate through the Democratic Party, because essentially in New Jersey, it's like a one-party state. Like there's literally not even the Republican Party. So unfortunately, the only electoral action that you get in New Jersey is in Democratic primaries or in municipal elections, which are nonpartisan. So you technically, again, could be a third-party type candidate, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't mean anything because the election itself is nonpartisan. So you'd basically have to you'd have to have open primaries in New Jersey, which would be a change. And then you have to have jungle primaries, where the top 2 vote getters, no matter what party they are, go to the general. In a system like that, states like Washington, California, you definitely could get a third party. Unfortunately, like the machine is so powerful in New Jersey that they want to keep it this way because they don't want a third party candidate emerging.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What's the deal with the Green Party and why are they all over the place?
Yeah, that's the thing with the Green Party, and I know a lot of people are super dissatisfied with the Democratic Party, and I totally understand. I understand people that are like, yo, I don't want to be involved with the Democratic Party. The thing is that the Green Party needs to put numbers on the board, right? Like, if you could just put one, I think if they just put one person in Congress, that would be so much more useful than running somebody for president every 4 years, because they keep saying, like, they only need 5% of the vote to get federal elections funding, right? 5% of the vote is a 20th of the way to victory. So, like, and they can't even get that far.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they chose a good congressional race, and they absolutely could, there are a couple weak candidates out there that they could take off and maybe run a good Green Party candidate, a serious Green Party candidate, and win in Congress. But until they put some numbers on the board, I think it's going to be very hard for people to take them as legitimate, because Republicans are more willing to vote for the Libertarian Party, who also doesn't have any representation, than leftists are to vote for the Green Party. So I feel like they have a way to go.
Yeah. What advice would you give like the younger generation, people who are their interest in politics, people who are activists, people who are, because they're the kids, I'll say, I'll put a range for like the ones who are in like high school and college, because they're right now in going to school during the pandemic, because people thought it would last a few months, then it lasted a year, now 2 years, now 3 years, now we have another variant coming. So like the younger generation who really is developing in a very abnormal world, what would you tell them?
My advice to the kids is that they're in this really interesting position where they are better suited to take control of the future than any generation, because we're basically making it all up as we go along in this post-apocalyptic hellscape, right? Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of fertile ground out there. I think that they should pick something that they really like, something that they're super passionate about, and just like go after that. This is a world of niche whatever. It's like, find your niche and chase it. And I feel like if people chase money, they'll always be poor. But if you chase your passion, you'll be wealthy no matter how much you make. Because if you just love what you do, and if you're happy with what you're doing, that's compensation in a certain way, and getting results out of that fight becomes a form of fulfillment. So I would tell the kids, find something you love and chase after it. And if any older person tells you that it's not worth your time, they're an idiot, and they'll never achieve anything. So chase your dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. How was it, or how do you think, besides the obvious stuff, but the effect the pandemic has had on, well, everything, but also like your like communication to reach people? for change in whatever level that is, locally or federally, what is, has it, what has been done? Harm, helped,
Yeah, I think a little of both, but I think that in some ways it's pushed us further as a society where I think that the digital world was coming and people were kind of like holding it off, and there's no holding it. It was like it hit us like a river, right? And like no matter what age group you are at this point, you got to have some degree of technical savviness, right? So for a long time, there was a phrase that I like, and it's like the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed, right? So some people are in the future, and some people are in like the 1800s, and I feel like COVID kind of bridge that gap to a significant degree, where I think more people are living in that digital world than were living in pre-COVID, even though it wasn't that far ago. And even though technology, it's not like technology took this hyper leap in the last 2 years. It's just that, this is the way that we're communicating. I don't know if anybody plays video games, but like there's this game called Death Stranding that came out like before the pandemic, and it's like eerily prescient because it's like this one guy who's like walking across a post-apocalyptic America trying to reestablish like connections between people because some crazy disease like separated people and people can't be around each other anymore. So it was like really weirdly prescient, but it's just like the best thing I think is like we've formed new connections in different ways, and people are freaked out by it a little bit because it's so new, but I think it's beautiful, and I think it's sort of like the way that the world, we were so afraid of taking this leap into the digital world, and now we're here.
Yeah. Is there, having said that, is there something that you were just like not about, that you don't want to know, like a new app or whatever, and you're just like, no, this is stupid, I don't want to have to learn how to do this, and you feel yourself being like your parent?
I wish, but I organize with so many different people that I can't say no to whatever they wanted. So Discord, Slack, I've downloaded so many apps in the last 2 years, like Google Voice, like everything. I'm on. So if anything, I used to be that way. I used to be like, I don't want to create a new account, and like, no, I don't even care anymore.
That's nice.
Yeah. Do you find yourself drawn to watching, whether it's like movies or TV, things that are like a little more politically bent, or do you kind of like use it as a way of like just getting far away and escaping from it when you are just like sitting down watching stuff?
I think it's a little of both, right? So, like, I definitely enjoy, like, political docs, and, like, I watch a lot of documentaries, especially about, like, history. There's so many cool political documentaries on YouTube that you can find, like, going down a rabbit hole. But then, like, I like to tune out. So, like, my wife has gotten me onto Witcher. I don't know if you guys watch The Witcher, but, like, it's super cool. I like stuff like that. So, like, I like fantasy stuff, but then I always find myself somehow relating it back to politics. Yeah. So, like, I was watching Game of Thrones, and I was like, this is basically Hudson County.
Yeah. Do you think, so in that example, like, something like Game of Thrones, do you think that, like, people seeing that, it does kind of, I don't know, like, make them think about politics differently, or at least, like, become more aware of things they might not have? Because, like, I'm sure, because there's obviously a lot of people who, when they see like any kind of thing, like a movie or a show that's like very clearly political, like something like Vice, right, where it's like, oh, it's like really Dick Cheney, and some people are turned, House of Cards, right, where it's like you're being very overt about it. Do you think people are more inclined to listen when they're put in kind of like a fantastical or otherworldly viewing experience?
Absolutely. I think like analogies are great teachers, because like if it's too in your face, I feel like people kind of tune it out. It's like, yeah, whatever. But like when it's cast in this story and like you really feel what's going on, you're like, wow, and then you're like, wow, that sort of reminds me of this fucking what? So yeah, I definitely think that like if you give people like a good story, and like you just like give them the raw human emotions of it all, like that helps tell a story more than like the sort of like technical stuff of like politics is like for a lot of people it's like kind of like boring. Like not I'm super into politics, but not everybody is into politics, and I totally get that. But like I think you can teach people about politics through analogy. So like I totally dig like finding the political angle of like things that are totally not political.
Have you given thought to what your like fantasy / political TV series would be? Like what worlds would you create of your own?
Oh my god, I wish I were that creative, right? Like I said that to so many people. It's like I love art and like am so in awe of artists, but I wish I were creative enough to create art, because I totally don't have the time or the like brain power to like sit down. But I would if I had the time, I totally would create some cool shit.
Yeah. Is there a character in like video game, movie, or TV that you've seen that you've like that either like inspires you or that you kind of like relate to in a very deep way?
There's a couple, and honestly, I'm gonna get so cheesy, but like my favorite character that I think I relate to a lot and like kind of gives me hope is like SpiderMan.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
I dig Peter Parker so much because I feel like he's the classical tragic hero. Like he loves humanity and he wants to do the right thing so much, but like God does not love Peter Parker. Like why does everything bad in the world happen to Peter Parker with a heart of gold? And I just feel like, or Goku. Goku's another like my favorite hero, because I just feel like you have a heart of gold and you just want to do the right thing. Is the right thing always going to happen back to you? Probably not. But like as long as you approach life with a positive outlook, and in the end it'll be okay.
Yeah, I feel like definitely Peter Parker sort of has to make like the biggest sacrifices. I understand, because this is what we were talking about when we watched the most recent film.
Yep.
And then like not to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but you should have seen it by now.
Skip 2 minutes ahead.
But like because I understand other superheroes have to make sacrifices, but he's a child. Like to me, I'm like, he's still a kid. He's in school. Like he should be having his youth right now in his childhood. I'm like, he had to just sacrifice the biggest thing. Like, what were your thoughts on the most do you have a top favorite Spider-Man film?
It was definitely the most recent one, right?
Same.
And I've seen them all, and I've been a huge fan. I've watched all the cartoons and stuff, and I just feel like the most recent film did capture that tragic hero of like, it was all trying to do the right thing. You just try to save the world, and the world doesn't love you back for it. And it's just like, wow, I can relate to that. Like it's like the ultimate culmination of no good deed goes unpunished. And especially like you said, it's like, damn, he's just a kid.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely for this one when they casted Tom Holland, also because he's the one who looks. He's like the youngest they've casted to play in the live action movies. So it did, it just seems like you're more aware of it. That like, oh yes, this person is in high school, or he's about to go to college, or if he's gonna go to college, and all that stuff. And also, the animations, I have to go back and watch those just because you like brought them on. Like I know Brendan's been watching them recently. I'm like, oh, they're so good.
Yeah. That's what I did during COVID. Is I rewatched the whole '96
They're
Spider-Man.
so good.
Yeah.
And also like the new movies and the old stuff, they're always Spider-Man. I always feel like is very visually pleasing. Like of course, like the recent film is just unbelievable. It is wicked.
The other thing I love about Spider-Man is like in a way, for all the superheroes, he's like the most human, because like he gets beat up a lot. Like other superheroes, like they just like kick the villain's ass, and like Spider-Man is always like just about to like get his ass beat.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, there's something about like the underdog is like people like always love rooting for the underdog, especially when like the underdog is someone that they actually like and can relate to in some way. We need a Bernie Sanders superhero comic. I think is
hell
really,
yeah.
I think we need Bernie to show up in the next Spider-Man comic and then just whoop some Green Goblin ass.
I dig it.
It's the future. You end up winning the Democratic nomination for president. Who's playing at your campaign concert?
Ooh.
Immortal Technique. Immortal Technique, does anybody know who that is?
No.
He's like, oh man, he's hardcore. He's hardcore. I've actually
some Tom Steyer
fantasized
level.
it would be something like that, like Killer Mike, Rage Against the Machine, like I'm gonna have Public Enemy, like oh man, we're gonna. The establishment is not going to enjoy my.
Yeah, yo, that's a great platform to run on. Like, guys, just vote for me. If anything else, you're going to get a dope festival with a lot of great music all playing the same day. Yeah. What are some of your ambitions for the future and things like places that you see yourself going or places that you want to see yourself going?
Well, I guess my dream was always to be involved in Hudson County politics, right? And to a degree, I guess I've sort of my dream has come true, right? And the aspiration now is to get policies that help people. To me, my dream is if I could cancel student loan debt tomorrow and get Medicare for all tomorrow, that would be great. Until then, I'm basically helping everybody that I can who wants to get those things. So I want to put more people on. I want to bring more younger people into the political thing. I want to get more people voting. I want to build a base of support amongst leftists, a true voting bloc that the machine is afraid of and that can get people elected. And then hopefully maybe one day I'll try again for office at some point, that may be in the cards if it's something that, I think I would be a good fit for. I definitely would like to try again. I have a lot of policies that I really want to fight for: affordable housing, getting transportation fixed around here. This is too big of a transportation hub for our transportation to be based off these little buses, mostly driven by undocumented immigrants who get paid minimum wage, And there's just so much more that we deserve as a people and as a country that I want to continue to fight for. I'm a policy nerd, so I could probably go on for hours and hours just telling you policy after policy that I'd really love to get done. I want to get public financing for elections. I want to get big money out of politics. I want to get let's talk about some cool shit civil asset forfeiture. I want that gone. I definitely want cannabis legalized.
Everybody hates that.
And I want cannabis legalized in a way that's for real, the way alcohol is legalized, right? That's what we're talking about. I actually just want to see the war on drugs end, period. I want to see mass incarceration come to a screeching halt. The school to prison pipeline I want to go away. There's just so much that I want to fight for. And having had the impact that I had in the last race definitely showed me that it's not a short-term thing. These changes don't happen in 2 or 4 years. These are things you hammer at for a long periods of time, and hopefully at some point you get those results.
You are a young candidate, so this means that you're going to be around when it's possible cryptocurrency takes over. What are your thoughts on cryptocurrency and how policy is going to be dictated? What's going to move forward with that? Is it going to just disappear tomorrow a lot of the older generation says it's going to?
Hodl hard. I don't know. Crypto is something I'm really interested in, actually. Not just because of the political stuff, but in my career, I do anti-money laundering on a day-to-day basis. So I'm super into crypto. I've been into crypto for longer than anybody in my industry has been into crypto because my industry is a bunch of older people. I actually have more hope for blockchain, specifically because I think that the way crypto operates now is more like the stock market, right? You're getting into an asset and you're hoping that it appreciates over time. And that's cool and that's super interesting. And I'm sure that there's a ton of money to be made there. But I think that the blockchain technology has more long lasting, I think blockchain could in a way revolutionize the way that we do things, not just monetarily, but supply chain, even I think I see a world where we monetize social interactions, or let's say I had a friend think about this who created the Newark Water Coalition. Imagine you created social currency and you gave people sort of a crypto key, and you could trade those keys in for a good. In his example would be water, because in Newark they were having this lead in the water crisis. So you do good deeds for people and they would give you a crypto key, and then you could take the crypto key to this store or whatever and you could get free water. See what I'm saying? Yeah. So I feel the world can be changed. I'm not so skeptical. I don't think crypto will disappear tomorrow. I'm not all the way there yet.
I did see with your money laundering background, you were involved in some pretty important stuff, right? In the past, do you want to get into any of those cases that you were on and what you dug deep into for the people at home who have kept around because they freaking love politics?
Yeah. So, in my career, I've done a couple investigations. So the Panama Papers might be some that your audience has heard of. There was something called Lava Jato or Operation Car Wash in Brazil that took down a politician by the name of Lula that a lot of leftists know about. The Russian laundromat was another one that we handled, which was like a bank out of Estonia that was laundering a bunch of Russian mafia money. So basically, any international money laundering scandal that you may have heard of. Odebrecht is another one that people may have heard of. Mossack Fonseca. I think that one was the Panama Papers. Basically, any international scheme where you find a bunch of corrupt people moving money. I've had a little bit of a hand in, because essentially these things hit the news, just like, and it'll come up on my desk and I'll have to investigate certain people. And all the banks I've worked at have been international banks, and they move money across countries. So everywhere I've worked, they always have some financial transactions that were involved in these scandals, and you have to do a lot of work on this stuff. I can say that I've worked with the feds. I've had to give information on people up to the feds, finding scandals that stretch from Algeria to Germany to South Africa, all across the globe. Estonia was another one. And you're basically just trying to track down the money. Like, where is the money going? Where did it come from? Who are these people? And sometimes, the answer is not a good one.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, it feels like you tracked down Marty Bird. You tracked down anyone.
Bounty hunter.
Yeah, I feel like we need more people who specialize in money laundering in politics. Get rid of some corruption. Move us a little bit further towards transparency and like the budgets being used in a way that they go to the right places. Yeah.
No, definitely. And I thought that was one of the big things. Like, that's why anti-corruption was one of the big issues of the campaign, is because, that's what I do for a living. And I track the money in my day-to-day job. I wanted to be able to do that in the federal government and hopefully get some of those corrupt people who fund our government out of that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hector, sounds like you definitely have a passion for helping people and people doing as much you can for other people. Is there anyone in your life that has kind of inspired you to think and act that way? Whether it's like someone you've worked with, or like a family member, or it's like someone that you've made like a historical figure.
Yeah, I would say in my personal life, my grandmother and my father, who are no longer with us now, but I think that they grew up poor. My grandmother was from the Dominican Republic. My father was from Honduras. They never had a lot of money. They just sort of had the clothes on their back and the strength in their hands. So, what they had is all they had, and you learn to be kind to people in that situation. You find that, but for, you could be there, but for a stroke of luck. So, if you're in a position where you can help somebody and it doesn't cost you anything, sometimes you come across people who kind of revel in not doing the bare minimum to help somebody else. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's if it doesn't cost me anything and I'm not going to be hurt by it, it doesn't hurt me to help you. And I definitely learned that from my grandmother and from my father, who grew up poor and who saw a lot of people who needed a lot of help, and help wasn't always willing to come. And, you're always grateful for that person who's willing to show kindness, when you're in a moment of weakness. So those people definitely, my family definitely had a big impact in, my personal moral philosophy and, just my basic outlook on life. So I would 100% credit them for the person I am now.
Word.
Well, I'm just going to check back in if there's anyone you want to add to your list before we wrap up through the evening. Do you want to know how many you have so far?
Yes.
All right, so you
Yes, definitely.
currently you sit at a 13, so feel free to add more.
That
to
could
your
be a
list.
lucky or unlucky number, depend on what you believe in.
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
you're located.
We do have people who will like settle at a certain score just because they're like, that's a good number. That's a number that is lucky for me. So
yeah.
you choose.
Some people, don't want to settle on whatever number they.
My lucky number is 15, so I got to think of two more.
Wait, why is
Right.
your lucky number 15?
I was born on the 15th.
No,
I was born on January 15th, so I've always gravitated toward that number.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. So my last two Hudson County politicians are going to be Nick Sacco and Tom DeGise.
Very good. Very good.
Nick Sacco is who I like to call the king of corruption. He's the mayor of North Bergen. He's a teacher who he's the mayor of North Bergen who simultaneously held down 5 jobs and retired from the Board of Education of North Bergen with $1 million payout for all his unused vacation time.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And Tom DeGise is the guy who had me arrested for protesting outside his house to free the undocumented immigrants that are held in ICE detention in Hudson County.
Well, there you have it, guys.
No,
sorry, go ahead.
No. I just had something that came to my mind, but it might have just slipped my mind. I forgot what it was already.
We'll try and grasp it.
Yeah, no, we'll grasp it back
Well, while we ask if there's any last thoughts,
Hector, do you have anything that you anything that you want to plug, or anywhere you want that people can find you, or anywhere that you want to send people and say, hey, this is where you need to be putting your eyeballs right now?
Awesome. So anybody who wants to follow me on social media, I'm at Oseguera 2020 on Twitter. My last name 2020. For now, we are organizing the 8th district for the upcoming primary. So there are 2 progressive candidates. One is David Ocampo, who is a young guy who recently came to the district and is sort of like a new face on the scene. If people like him, they can check him out. The other candidate is Ricardo Rojas, who was my campaign manager when I ran in 2020. They're both great guys. I invite everybody to look at their platforms and decide who you want to go with. Right now, I'm more for the movement. So there's the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County. Go to their website and you can get involved. There's the Hudson County Progressive Alliance, who also does a lot of local work. And I've also joined the board of Force the Issue New Jersey, which is a group that creates digital tools for progressives to organize. So check out any of those 3 orgs. They're doing great work in Jersey, and we would love to have anybody who is down for some leftist politics.
Cool, thank you.
Sounds great. How are you finding time to do all this? You're a new dad, right?
I am a new father. Yeah, my daughter is 6 months old. She's amazing. She's got a lot of personality, and it's a lot of hard work. But like I said, if you're truly doing what you love, it's not work at all. So, my daughter's super cool. She's super chill. She likes to listen to me ramble about politics, and she listens very intently and doesn't mind whatsoever. So she's my greatest supporter so far.
That's adorable.
Oh, that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Hector, for being our guest. I feel 1,000% smarter from having been here listening to you. And thank you everyone out there for listening to Sessions with Mary Jane. We're here every single week, so you can always find new podcasts. Also, listen to The Morning Shower, which is our news joke podcast that we have during the week. We might have some new additions to it, so keep an eye out for that. And we also got a lot, we're always posting videos. We're doing a bunch of stuff. We got a new short film coming out soon. So keep following Late Night Hump all over the place. Just Google it in your free time.
LNH Studios.com.
Yeah. And, keep on doing whatever you're doing that's doing good for you.
Peace out.